Hi everyone, in today's tactics video I'm going to compare the fast attack units of the Attilan Rough Riders versus the Death Korps of Krieg Riders. I'll examine whether the Death Korps Riders are a possible alternative from a competitive point of view to the Rough Riders. And as you know, the Rough Riders are out in plastic now, being released in line with the new codex, whilst the Death Korps of Krieg Riders have been out for a while and only available in resin via the overly expensive Forgeworld website. I personally own 10 of the Death Korps of Krieg Riders, some of which are recasts, and I proxied them to be played as Rough Riders, and obviously still have the option of playing them as Death Korps of Krieg. An important note on the base sizes is the Rough Riders come on oval 60 by 35mm bases, whilst the Death Korps of Krieg are on 50mm bases. I've based all mine on the oval bases and never had any issues in tournaments, but I just want to make you aware of this because it is important. So looking at their basics, both units are fielded in squad sizes of 5 to 10 models, including their leader being the Rough Rider Sergeant or the Death Korps of Krieg Ridemaster. Current point costs for both are 100 points or 20 points a model, and comparing their keywords you can see the identical ones being cavalry, platoon and regimental being shared, and this means they can both benefit from regimental doctrine and also regimental and prefectus orders. Both being cavalry means they can't perform any action-based secondary objectives, and of course they can't move for a lot of terrain pieces, in particular walls. The Death Korps of Krieg Riders have their own keyword, and likewise do the Attilan Rough Riders, which critically allows them to use two specific stratagems. A key difference in the Rough Riders is that they have the core word, the keyword core, whilst the Death Korps of Krieg Riders don't. And this obviously means the Death Korps of Krieg Riders can't benefit from any senior officer reroll auras, like from Acadian Castellan or Lord Solar, for example. So now looking at their core stats, this is where things get interesting. Rough Riders have a 12-inch move, whilst the Death Korps of Krieg have a 10-inch move. Their weapon skill and ballistic skill are opposite, with Rough Riders having weapon skill 3, ballistic skill 4, whilst the Death Korps of Krieg are basically opposite to that. Rough Riders are strength 4 versus strength 3 for the Death Korps Riders. They're both toughness 4, with Rough Riders having 2 wounds, whilst the Death Korps have 3 wounds. 2 attacks for the Rough Riders and only just the 1 for the Death Korps of Krieg. And both are basically leadership 7 thanks to their squad leaders, and both have got a 4+ save. So looking just at this, we've got a faster, potentially harder hitting melee unit versus a slower, softer hitting potential melee unit that is more survivable. Now layering on some additional rules, the Rough Riders can ignore all penalties to move thanks to their Horsemaster rule, so making them even faster, whilst the Death Korps of Krieg Riders have got a 5+ feel no pain. Now this 5+ feel no pain is where I see some opportunity for the Death Korps Riders over the Rough Riders. Both of these units are toughness 4 and 4+ save, which against anything serious will see them disintegrate. The Death Korps Riders obviously have 3 wounds each, which makes them a bit more tanky, and crucially, damage to weapons will be inefficient into them, with essentially 1.5 shots needing to go through to kill a single model, whilst obviously just a single shot's required for the Rough Riders with only 2 wounds. The Feel No Pain obviously sweetens this even more, as a 5+ is essentially a 33% chance that one of their 3 wounds is going to be saved. So across the collective 15 wounds for 5 models, it's essentially an additional 5 wounds. So suddenly you're talking about a theoretical 20 wounds versus 10 wounds on the Rough Riders, both at 100 points. So from that we can agree that the Death Korps Riders are significantly more resilient than the Rough Riders. Now how about their damage output? So looking at their war gear options, they're near identical in the sense they've both got hunting lances, las pistols and frag grenades. The Death Korps Ridemaster can take a bolt pistol or plasma pistol and also swap his lance for a chain sword or power sword, both options the Rough Rider Sergeant can't necessarily take. The Rough Riders on the other hand also have las guns, so extending some of their range, whilst the Sergeant gets free of cost power saber, being a better quality power sword, and also the option as a goad lance, which is an anti-vehicle weapon. Now, as you're probably aware, the Rough Riders have the additional rule that on the charge they are +2 strength, meaning their frag tips are strength 6, whilst the melter tips are a fancy strength 8, which is obviously excellent. In comparison, the Death Korps Riders are coming in with only strength 5, AP3 flat 2 damage on the charge, which translate to strength 3 AP 1 damage off the charge. This is made worse by the fact that they are weapon skill 4+ and have only got the 1 attack as mentioned earlier. It must however be mentioned that the Death Korps Riders do get an additional 2 attacks from the Savage Claws rule, which is more chip damage at strength 4 AP 1, which obviously helps as well. So damage output wise, the Rough Riders will always be far superior to the Death Korps Riders, given explosive tips from the frag tips and also the sheer brute force of the melter tips. But I do think the increased resilience of the Death Korps Riders could see them being used to soak up some initial damage before their Rough Rider collies come smashing in afterwards. Let's be super duper clear here that neither of these options are super meta units. With 100 points probably better spent with Khazrakans, which are basically a must-have unit in any competitive tournament level list these days. However, for more casual games, one of these could be a fun exercise smashing into your opponent. Do remember, as said at the start, both of these units are not infantry, meaning they have to move around walled terrain, meaning a lot of their movement is going to be spent just maneuvering like a vehicle. Now before we wrap it up, there's another way to field Death Korps Riders, and that is via the 4-man command squad at 85 points, and occupying an elite slot. You can only take these if you also take a Death Korps Rider Squadron Commander, and the main benefit of these 4 models is that they have got 2 attacks, which combined with the 2 attacks from the Savage Claws would come a little bit closer to the raw damage output of the Rough Riders. Crucially though, the command squad doesn't have the keyword platoon, which means they can't receive regimental or prefector's orders from other officers. But interestingly, the Death Korps Squadron Commander can give orders to both cavalry keyword units, so he alone can order them around at least. So that complete package of the squadron leader and the 4-man command squad would be 130 points with the squadron leader at 45 points. The leader sports 5 wounds at a 5+ invul save and also 5+ feel no pain, which could actually make it quite a resilient Astra Militarum character. You then got a 5 model package as a semi-resilient fast attack parcel that could deliver a moderate damage on the charge. As said before, this definitely isn't a hyper meta pick, but when balanced in a list with Leman Russes, Khazrakans and Mortars, it or even just 5 Death Korps Riders could provide a decent, somewhat resilient countercharge, but most importantly achieving the rule of cool with you putting Death Korps Riders on the tabletop. So what do you think of Death Korps of Krieg Riders within the context of the new codex? Have you tried them out on the tabletop? Do them in the comments. So if you enjoyed this and want to support me, you can do so with a like, comment or by subscribing, watching any of my other YouTube videos where I cover hobby, tactics and lore of Astra Militarum, or joining my Patreon platoon. Let's get your bayonet sharp, let's go oiled. Thank you for the Emperor strong. Patreon platoon, sound off. Tank Commander Glenn. Tank Commander Watchdog Van Etten. Tank Commander Mitchell. Colour Sergeant DuPont. Sergeants Adal, the Colonel Merrill, Veteran Gibson, Hall, Lundeen, Guardsman Beard, Coquelin, Flint, Hills, Malik, Nitton, Nguyen, Smith, Tom, Tompkin, Conscripts England, Gilliam, Goodwin.